Welcome to part two of our budget review. And I think you're going to kick off with something that maybe's gone a bit under the radar,
I
Guy.
think so. So I'm going back to the sort of 80s, 70s, 80s when we used to
Cool.
have something called the well, when we had the investment income surcharge. You'd
And
probably don't remember.
hair. Yeah.
And, well, yes, brown hair in my case. Investment income surcharge, which
Yeah.
was charged on, as it sounds, income that
Investment
wasn't
income.
earned income.
Yeah.
And I think she's brought it back, and no one's
Mm.
talking about it. I think she's brought it back because she said that anyone who earns their money from savings, dividends, or rental income, landlords, in other words, will have to pay an extra 2% above either the basic rate or the higher rate, whichever rate they're in.
Yeah.
So I think that's a new line of tax.
Mm.
And it doesn't sound much, but people say on a pension, so their income is above the tax threshold,
Yeah.
might suddenly find that their savings pot, if it's not in an ISA, is
Yeah.
paying this extra tax.
And if you're one of these people who's got a property portfolio as well,
Yes.
that's going to
Yes.
affect you quite significantly in terms of rental income on that property portfolio.
Yes, you'll already be paying income tax on your profits, but then you're going to pay another 2% sort of strata or whatever you want to call it on. So that's something people haven't picked up. So,
No.
Is that a scoop, Sean? Have I scooped?
Yes. Well done. A scoop. Yes. We haven't had a scoop yet, have we, on Riff Raff News? But
Should
I
we
think
claim that?
Yeah, we'll add that one. Yeah.
But whilst I'm on a roll, we should talk about the changes to ISAs from April 2027, because a lot of listeners will have an ISA.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, not everyone can afford to put £20,000, which is the current limit, in an ISA every year. But for those people who can, previously they're allowed to put it in either cash or stocks and shares or a bit of a mix. But now you're going to be limited to £12,000 in cash, which is a funny figure, isn't it, really?
Peculiar.
£1,000 has to go into what she described as investments. And my only thing with that is that what's in the detail there, because I thought the whole idea was to get investment in UK companies, FTSE and what have you.
I thought she'd mentioned that in her speech, if I'm honest.
I missed that.
Yeah, I thought she'd mentioned British companies, but I also noted that she'd been in debate or in negotiations with 5 major British financial institutions to produce release products that are specifically tailored to this market. So I think they're looking at people who haven't invested in stocks and shares before, who haven't got the experience, who really are going to put their money in the hands of in the hands of the big companies to be able to invest it for them. It's a bit of responsibility on them, but I think they'll be quite, but I think it'll be quite, like when you invest, you've normally got the safe end of the market, and you've got the middle market, and you've got the risky end that give you the bigger returns. I think it's going to be well in the safe end, so broadly spread that the likelihood of losing a lot of money on it is, because they want to encourage people to do it, don't they? And even at that safe end, you'll know from experience that they, over the last 10, 15 years, I think as she said in her speech, performance on investments in equities has far exceeded what's been available for cash ISAs. So I think it's quite a wise move, actually, quite a sensible move.
I think it's okay, but I'm a bit uncomfortable with mandating any customer or client that they have to invest in one region, say the UK, because it's far, far better to spread risk across geographies. But anyway, that's what she's decided. So that's from 2027, but it's the over 65s, so you're okay, are exempted from that. You can still put it all in cash.
Oh, well, there we are.
Well, not under the bed, I mean in the bank.
You'll be able to get your millions out, won't you? The stuff you haven't already shifted offshore,
If only, Sean. If only. But there we are. So that was different.
Yeah, absolutely. And some other bits and pieces, the gambling, I think we said, that's remote gambling duty, because we were talking last week about Sky Bet, weren't we? Remote gambling duty, so that's on online gambling and what have you, is going to be increased from 25 to 40%.
Yeah.
That's quite significant, isn't it, really? And I think that's to try and discourage those people who, it's a moralistic thing to a degree, those people who are going online who can't really afford it, and they're throwing money at playing all sorts of games at home online that they wouldn't necessarily go down to the betting shop to do. So there's an element of making a lot of money, because there's clearly a lot of money being taken by these online gambling businesses, but there's also this trying to make sure that those who can't afford it
don't get in a mess.
Don't get in a mess.
But you're okay though, because bingos, they're going to take the tax away from bingo, aren't they?
How's he? Legs 11.
Well, there you go then. I didn't realise you were a caller.
Can we say two fat ladies anymore? Or is that something out the window
I
now?
think you just did.
88, yeah. So, and on which point, actually, she made quite a witty joke, I thought, about Zach Polanski. She was talking about his previous role as a hypnotherapist, where he was supposedly able to increase the size of women's breasts as a hypnotherapist just by his words, and she said that in his new role, what he's proposing, the only thing he'll be increasing the public debt and also the inflation rate. So I thought that was quite funny, really. But there we are.
Yeah, if you know the context, that is.
If you know
funny.
the context, yeah.
Okay.
So gambling, national living wage. Now you've been on top of this, haven't you, in terms of the figures?
I think reasonably as expected. Is it inflationary or a bit more?
It's a little bit more.
Bit more, yeah. So I think that's fair enough. I mean, the damage was done last year. I mean, hospitality jobs are 150,000 down compared with last year. It was the national insurance regime that damaged employment of the lower paid last year. But okay, national living wage, £12.71 an hour. It still doesn't sound like a fortune.
No, although she has helped the high street, hasn't she? This year there was this money that's meant to be taking effectively from online
business
retailers,
rates.
and putting it into reducing the.
Yeah, that sounded good. You'd have to see the detail, but I agree.
Yeah. So it was couched as helping the pub, wasn't it? The British pub and the retailers on the high street. So that'll be interesting, as you say, when we get down into the reeds of that, to find out what exactly that national living wage and national minimum wage. The national minimum wage has increased as well, but that's in 3 segments. I found that quite interesting. There's the under-8s, who are, I'm not quite sure what the figures are on that. They're all getting an increase, but the 18 to 21s are getting a bigger increase percentage-wise than anybody else.
Yes.
And then there's the over 21s, because she wants to merge those two bands together over time. Yeah. Which so we shall see. Rail fares. This was leaked a few weeks ago, as you say, frozen until March 2027, which will go down well with the commuter lobby. We come from Brighton backwards and forwards on the. Sorry, I interrupted you in your flow there.
No, not at all. No. And the commuters in all parts of the country, these are standard fares. These aren't the deals you get on Trainline. Other providers are available, etc. Yeah. But these are the standard fares, aren't they? Not the discounted fares.
Yeah, these are season tickets. And,
for 30 years have gone up with inflation. Well, not this year. So, okay, fair enough.
I guess they'll have more room for manoeuvre there in coming years, as well as they all come back under public ownership.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? They can do that. But didn't she also do something on electric bills as well? Did I hear that?
Yeah, there was. She scrapped the previous government's green levy, wasn't it? I think.
Okay.
It was called, and she's putting that back into reducing the average household bill by £150 per annum.
And that's for everyone then?
That's for everyone, yeah.
So working people, non-working people, and rich people.
And those who don't know, yeah.
And those who've not worked out if they're working people.
Yeah. Those who, the people who, I think George Osborne said, didn't he? The ones who pulled their curtains back in the morning to see everybody else going off to work. They're included in this. They were talking last night about how this could be a disaster, and somebody was talking about the pasty tax. Do you remember the pasty tax? The omnishambles of 19.
That was Osborne, wasn't it?
That was Osborne. Yeah. And they were saying at that point that he put up. I'm trying to get that. I think he put up national insurance in that budget, but nobody was talking about national insurance. They were all just talking about the extra money on Cornish pasties, which, quite bizarre, isn't it? How you can deflect attention away from the main element of it. Cost of prescriptions is frozen at £9.90.
Fair enough.
I'm quite lucky in that perspective. I don't have to pay for those. Do you?
Not
Pay
now.
for your prescriptions?
No. 60, isn't it? It's bizarre, really. It's quite young. I was very grateful for it, but quite young.
But
we
then,
should talk about salary sacrifice. Is that okay?
Yeah, we're coming on to that. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Did we do pensions? Did we not do pensions? No.
State pension. I thought we mentioned it. Yeah.
Yeah. Go on then. Tell us about salary sacrifice.
Salary sacrifice is a bit complicated, but basically this enables you to make pension contributions without paying tax or national insurance. Well, that's now being capped at £2,000 for the national insurance element. And if you take someone who's maybe putting 5% of their salary in a pension, which I think is the minimum under the pension rules, that takes you to about 40,000. So the way I work that out is anyone earning above 40,000, details to be confirmed, would no longer get relief on national insurance on salary sacrifice. So I think that's very disappointing, and yet more tinkering with pension rules, which politicians should just leave alone.
We had this conversation last week, didn't we?
Well,
really?
we did. I mean,
I just don't.
You're there on your gilt edge final salary pension scheme.
No, gilt edge.
£2,000 a year is nothing.
Yeah, £2,000 a year is more than most people can afford to, on top of normal contributions to pensions, can make into their. It's all very well these multi-billionaire bankers, at the top, people who are on boards and what have you, who've got all this money flushing around that they just want to put away for a rainy day. They can get tax advantages on, but the average man in the street hasn't got anywhere near that. So they haven't got £2,000 to be able to throw into a salary sacrifice
they have,
scheme.
It's Middle England again. And this is where the fairness, we talked earlier about fairness and people feeling if they're Middle England and they're earning a crust and paying their bills and doing the right thing. I think people feel they're being squeezed for people who are receiving benefits of all kinds, state benefits, including state pension.
There's a difference
this
between
is where politically she'll come
I'm not going to have this. There's a difference between being able to put food on the table.
You don't like it.
Be able to put food on the table and be able to put an extra £10,000 in a tax-efficient wrapper.
As usual, you're a bit dodgy on the detail. 2,000,
there's no comparison. There's no comparison. No, there's no comparison.
There's a world of difference. When I last looked, there's 8,000 difference between the two figures you're talking about.
No, I'm talking about what it was before. I'm not talking about now.
Well, there wasn't a limit, but anyway.
You could put whatever you wanted in before.
I think it's too low. If you're going to do it, I think it's too low.
Yeah,
it's too low. Because the state will end up paying for people with impoverished pension schemes long after we're 6 foot under.
Agree to disagree on that.
Hopefully they'll quote me then.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. So, final two, sugar tax. We discussed last week, putting money on prepackaged milkshakes. Okay. Hey, this is a big issue, isn't it? I just think they ought to be looking in a broader based look at this and be putting taxes on high sugar, high fat, high food in general, not just, and that money ought to be then used to attempt to reduce the price of food that's non-packaged. So take taxation or to help in that regard to produce.
Oh, Mr. Cheerful and the IFS used to go on about this.
Did he?
Saying that, the VAT tax base is not broad enough and it's confusing. Yes. So the problem is, of course, if you whack tax or VAT on food, you increase inflation overnight.
Well, not necessarily, because you get, as been proven with the sugar tax in terms of soft drinks, manufacturers will reformulate their drinks to bring it down to the level where you don't pay that tax.
Okay.
So that's what they ought to be encouraging people to do. So these ultra high processed foods are not so ultra high processed. They maybe last a little bit less time, and they don't sit on a shelf for 6 months. They only last 2 months instead. But
so you're going to be responsible for people drinking green moldy milkshake?
No, don't. No, I just think if we're looking to improve people's health, then we ought to look across the board, really.
Absolutely.
And finally, just overall, we're looking at public finances. Now, as you said, she's built up herself a £22 billion war fund here, effectively a headroom in terms of things going wrong in the future. There's also been upgrade of growth from the OBR. There was a lot of pessimism over the last 2 weeks from the OBR, but they've held back on this 1.5% in terms of growth, which is good news for her as well.
Could be.
But so I think it could have been a lot worse. I think she's pleased a lot of Labour backbenchers. I think she's pleased that quite a few people around the country who are on lower incomes. She might not have your end at the the multi-millionaires. They won't be very happy. They'll be up in arms and threatening to go off to Dubai again. So be it. But I think the average man on the street has done quite well out of this, if I'm honest.
Well, I think the opposite. I think the average lower income group have done quite well out of it. And I think politically, whether you agree with that or not, politically, as all these measures eventually roll out, and some of them are way down the road, but people will just feel poorer and poorer. And when you listen to phone-ins and you watch things like Question Time, you see this coming across as people go, I don't quite know when it happened, but I just feel so much poorer and poorer. And I think these things will nibble away. But there was nothing uber scary. It may be unless you're an electric car driver or you do have a property above 2 billion. There was nothing like a farmer's tax in here. But I think the electric driver thing might be a bit of a thing because there's quite a few of them now. But she survived. She came out fighting, where credit's due. I thought
relatively
the delivery,
good performance.
yeah,
Wasn't it?
relatively good performance. I didn't, for balance, I didn't see Mrs. Bannock's response, so I need to go and do my homework on that.
She was very feisty. I thought she was a little bit personal. I felt it was some of it was a bit rough around the edges, a bit nasty, if I'm honest.
Okay.
But she was very feisty, and I'm sure she'd have pleased her troops as well in that respect.
Okay.
So we shall see how it all pans out in the coming week.
We will. Quick question.